Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating and honestly completely paradigm-shifting perspective on a topic that carries a lot of stigma: borderline personality disorder, or BPD. Now, to really grasp this, we first need to look at its core traits. At its foundation, BPD is characterized by severe emotional dysregulation, an intense fear of abandonment, and a rapidly fluctuating sense of self. Usually, it's talked about in a very gloomy, pessimistic way. But today, we're examining source material that completely reframes BPD. We're going to look at some incredibly empowering clinical data and explore the profound psychological strength that researchers suggest are hidden right there within the condition. So, if you or someone you know is navigating BPD, this explainer offers a completely new lens through which to view the mind. Let's get into it.
Here's our roadmap for today. 1. Beyond the despair. 2. The path to remission. 3. C is for creativity. 4. I is for intensity. 5. E is for enlightenment. And finally, 6. A technicolor conclusion.
Section 1. Beyond the despair, confronting the stigma.
Look, it is absolutely vital that we start by validating the immense pain of this diagnosis. BPD can feel like a total curse. It triggers these profound feelings of emptiness and requires just infinite patience, medication, and therapy to manage. Nobody is disputing that it's a massively heavy burden to carry. But we really have to ask, why the absolute total despair? Despite the very real struggle, we have to look at the clinical reality. Does the data actually justify the total lack of hope that usually surrounds a BPD diagnosis? Well, the literature suggests it doesn't.
Check this out. It is an astonishing, mathematically proven fact that more than 80% of people diagnosed with borderline personality disorder actually lose the diagnosis by the time they reach age 45 or 50. I mean, 8 out of 10 people. The remission of this condition is spontaneous and almost inevitable. Time genuinely heals here. As individuals age, the intense emotional fluctuations often just kind of burn themselves out, leading to a very natural stabilization of their emotional baseline.
Section 2. The path to remission, science and healing.
That high remission rate leads us directly to a highly optimistic prognosis for BPD. It's actually a much better prognosis than for conditions like narcissistic personality disorder or schizophrenia. But you might be thinking, okay, age 45 is a long time to wait. Fortunately, patients have incredibly powerful options to accelerate their healing right now. And the absolute standout here is Dialectical Behavior Therapy, or DBT. DBT focuses on teaching very practical skills for emotional regulation, distress tolerance, and mindfulness. It is arguably the most efficacious treatment modality in mental health today.
And the clinical success of this exact treatment is just staggering. More than 50% of people with the BPD diagnosis who actively attend DBT are essentially healed and cured within just 1 year. Let that sink in. Over half within a single year. When we evaluate these clinical facts, there is absolutely no reason for the desperation that usually accompanies the diagnosis. Healing isn't just possible, it's statistically probable.
So once we realize BPD has such incredible remission rates, we can begin to explore what our source material calls its rich endowment. It is a heavy burden, yes, but the framework suggests it's also accompanied by a profound blessing. We've structured this hidden blessing as the CIE acronym: creativity, intensity, and enlightenment.
Section 3. C is for creativity, the inner creator.
Let's explore the first fundamental strength. Borderline traits, specifically what is termed borderline disorganization, are closely associated with a personality factor from Ising's psychological model known as psychoticism. Now, I know that sounds like a scary word, but clinically it doesn't mean actual psychosis. Instead, it refers to a neurological organization that breaks conventional rules. It basically acts as the first cousin of extreme creativity. Because of this unique wiring, people with BPD are very often uniquely creative, perfectly capable of generating entirely new perspectives and concepts that end up benefiting all of us.
Section 4. I is for intensity, tasting life.
You hear the word dysregulation thrown around a lot in clinical literature, usually as a pejorative label. But the source material reframes this entirely. It suggests that a borderline's life is actually a vivid technicolor movie. They experience existence in a way very few others can. From this perspective, a neurotypical or healthy person's life can actually seem ordinary, drab, and almost boring in comparison to the voluptuous, deeply immersive reality of the borderline experience.
The borderline has a profoundly intimate relationship with their own emotions. Yes, they are often overwhelmed by their internal processes, but precisely because of that, they are intricately acquainted with them. They go through life literally tasting, smelling, digesting, and getting utterly immersed in every single component of existence. They live as the literal force of life embodied.
As the literature notes, She goes through the existence of the world, and she lights them up. This intense immersion makes the borderline individual a throwback to an older age of romantics and idealists. They possess this raw aesthetics of pure life force that provides profound stimulation, motivation, and gratification to those lucky enough to be in their orbit.
Section 5. E is for Enlightenment, the blank canvas.
Finally, we arrive at enlightenment, and this is a gift that actually stems directly from what's often cited as one of the most painful aspects of the disorder, that chronic feeling of emptiness. Because the borderline feels empty inside, they become an empty receptacle. They lack a rigid core, meaning they are divested of ego, and without that rigid ego, they are radically open to experiencing, amalgamating, and aggregating everything around them.
So, because they're divested of ego, they essentially act as a blank canvas. This unique state allows for an incredible level of resonance and merging with others. It's almost like a human Rorschach test. By merging so deeply, they act as a catalyst. They have this uncanny ability to reflect and bring out their partner's core identity, hidden potential, and deepest aspirations in ways that feel like a literal dream come true.
Now, I want to be clear here. The source material does not idealize this. There is immense learning in loss and profound growth in pain. Sharing a relationship with someone with BPD is high maintenance, and the emotional cost can sometimes feel catastrophic. But through that very friction, they bring on alchemical processes of the mind. They force profound personal evolution and enlightenment both in themselves and in the people who get close to them.
Section 6. A Technicolor Conclusion, the Creature of Light.
To wrap up this explainer, we really have to look at the borderline individual through a completely new paradigm, not merely as someone struggling with a deficit, but as someone deeply essential to the human tapestry. The source framework describes them poetically, saying, "The borderline is a creature of light. She is vapor, not flesh." Because they are so ephemeral, intensely creative, and dramatic, their mere presence is enough to catalyze incredible feats of innovation, introspection, and unbelievable growth in everyone around them.
Which brings us to a final, really provocative thought. If we view this from an evolutionary perspective, this condition survived, evolved, and became widespread over time for a reason. So, knowing this massive capacity for creativity, intensity, and catalyzing enlightenment, the source material leaves us with a profound question. Does society actually require the dramatic, brilliant spark of the borderline to truly grow? Could we really thrive without them? Think about that the next time you hear the term BPD. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.